Okay, so I was just while there's nobody here, nobody's going to know anything about this because we're not on yet. So I
Cool.
saw this video on Twitter earlier on, and I thought we'd have a little look and see what it's all about because it's a bit of a piss take. Some people might not take kindly to it, but if we have a look now and have a bit of a titter, then nobody will know about it. So check this out. Check this out, Andrea.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, there she is. There he is. Do you remember this bit?
I love this. This is my favourite 2 Doctor Who episodes. Like, yeah.
Oh, look at their faces. Look at his gait. Look at her. Look at her hair. All that bounce. It's like a Vosine ad. Oh my God.
Good job in there. Got sensible shoes on.
It is. Anything can go right through the soles of those things. I've worn Converse, but no, he's going for it. What? Who's this? The 13s. The 13 stands. Oh no.
Oh no.
I've met a few of those myself.
Yeah.
This isn't going to go well, is it? Oh no. Got him. Oh.
Yeah. Get rid of the talented actor, would you, please? Yeah.
That's from somebody called Crispy Creations on Twitter.
Amazing.
There's this guy who said he was bored. After he put it out, I think he got a bit of flack for it. And he says, it's just something I did in an idle hour. I don't mean anything by it. Yeah,
no.
Of course you didn't.
I just came off the top of my head.
Perfectly harmless, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Just a little laugh just between the two of us. I think it's time to start the show now. What do you think?
Yeah, let's go for it. We don't want anybody else seeing that. You know, they might not take kindly.
Yes, hello, it's time for Type 40, a little extra Type 40, just for you and you and you. Oh yeah, great stuff. There's a regeneration cycle's worth here already, and it's building. Thank heaven for that. Yes, just for you, with me, Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks, here again, kicking off another week on the channel with a couple more shows to come later on. But I thought we'd have a casual chat here. I've got Andrea here from Atomic Blonde LDN. That's it. So we're going to have a little chat, aren't we? And see if we can find something to geek out about as we begin another week in the Whoniverse. I don't know if you've noticed this about this, Andrea, but even when it seems like it's going to be a quiet week in Doctor Who, something outrageous happens. Somebody says or does something, don't they? Have you noticed that?
Oh, it's all the time. There's constantly like grenades going off, isn't there? You know, and sometimes I just think that some people just make some really innocent comments. Yes. And it just explodes, and they're like, "Oh no!" And you could just sort of see them. They're like, they're reversing so fast, they're beeping because they're just like, "Oh my god!" I just made a general comment, and you know, I think you you just can't win with the fandom. Whatever you say, it's wrong right now. I get it. You know, people are so passionate about this show, so I understand it. But you know, I think be a bit calmer.
Yeah, just to take it down a peg or two. So have you been a Doctor Who fan for long? This is the first time we've spoken properly. So have you been into this show for very long? Have you seen it all before? You feel like you've seen it all come and go again?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I've been a fan since the classic Who. I'd say I start getting my age a bit now, but the first Doctor I remember is the sort of the very late half of like Tom Baker with Romana. Yeah. And Peter Davison was very much my Doctor. I absolutely loved Peter Davison's run, and sort of stuck with it right to the bitter end through to Sylvester.
That's the spirit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it took, Colin Baker had an odd run. Some of his Big Finish stuff is great, actually. So I think he really lucked out with, not particularly great writing and budgets and assistants and things like that. Ace came in with Sylvester, which was brilliant. I mean, that sort of really lifted the show. Yeah. But I think, it was just so far gone down the product list for the BBC. I don't think it was ever going to come back. And then for it to come back in 2005, I think blew us all away. And then what we actually got was just like jaw-dropping, compared to the budgets we've seen before. And the stories were good. And you're like, Russell T. Davies really gets this show. he really understands how it works. So I don't think, it's sci-fi. How could we have possibly seen everything? There are stories out there to tell, but we just need good writers to tell them.
So it sounds like, just like me, you're hanging on for dear life. Whatever happens at this old show.
I'm fingertips right now. I'm the 60th. I am fingertips, and I'm just like, there's that little spark of hope in me, and I'm like, oh, just please be good. Please be good. I can't.
They have managed to
take another.
stamp out the final embers of your affection for this show. This is just what I love to hear. It's smiles all around. There'll be lots more of that to come, no doubt. And yeah, just in case you're wondering what this is all about, this is Type 40 Extra. This is our sort of after show, but it's also a before show and an in-between show too. So all the stuff that we put out, all the podcasts and live streams that we put out with the Fandom Podcast Network, we're going to, if I can get a graphic up for those. Yes, so if you're curious about what all this is, if this is your first time here on the channel, you can catch all our podcasts, Type 40 itself and Type 40 Live at type40.podbean.com. That's where you can find the audio versions of everything. So get over there, add it to whichever podcatcher is your favorite, whether it's Audible, Spotify, Podbay, whatever. All the shows are right there. We're back with a new run of Type 40 Live this Thursday at 8 p.m. on YouTube, Andrea. It's going to be a big one. I'm going to tell you some more about that a little later on. I know people are hanging on. What's it going to be about? Because it's one of our big event shows. We do one of these now and again. But these little shows are all about. It's time for us really to take a little bit of respite in between those bigger affairs and just to chill out, really, to take stock, to do that about what's going on in the Whooniverse. And there's always something creative happening or outrageous happening. And if I don't know about it and my guest doesn't know about it, you can bet that they do, because we're streaming this one live over to Facebook and YouTube, and we have a live chat. So should we go and see who's turned up already and see what they've got to say, see if they're behaving themselves, eh?
Hi, chat.
Okay, we have Carol Jude here, and she says, oh God, it has to be this clip. I don't know what she's talking about. No idea what that's about.
No.
Cam's here. Says, hi Dan, hello everyone, good to see you, Cam. This is the bit where they talk amongst themselves, you see, which I kind of like that. I don't take it personally. Will Hadcroft here. Will is about to have his audiobook published by BBC Books, and hopefully he'll come on to chat about it at some point or another. So it's good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to Type 40. Good to see you again, Will.
Amazing.
And we've got Peter Harrington here too, as well. They're all saying like hello to one another. Mark Luseth. Mark, sorry for lousing up your surname. Yeah. It's near enough. It's got to be one of the two. I'll get used to it. Don't say. Let me know how it's pronounced in the chat by all means. I've got the Scottish Davros. He's kicking around too. I think he moves quite quickly. He moves like lightning, that Daniel Leach does. But I'm sure he'll pop up again. Will says it's already out. Sorry, Will. Yes, so we can get that. We'll get you the links. We'll pop them in the description too. But yeah, his audiobook is out. The Second Doctor and James, read by Fraser Hines too. Wow. And I think he's out on the publicity trail for this at some point in the future. It is very cool, isn't it? Imagine your childhood heroes. And you get to be one of the people who get to put words in their mouths. That must be quite a thrill, hasn't it?
I'd love to have a talent like that, to be able to, because like every nerdy person, we bang on about bad writing, but I wouldn't even know where to start. So, and I know it's not easy to write good stories. So anybody that's able to do this, I have the utmost admiration for. I'm very jealous.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Will, because I didn't realize Will was actually wrote books. I've seen his blog and all that kind of thing. And he very quickly filled me in when I was on another show talking about it. So I got the shock of my life when I saw his name pop up there. That was great. But talking about books, I don't know, a bit of a confession here. I have recently rediscovered flea markets and car boot sales. Do you love a car boot? Do you ever go to car boot sales? I
have not been to a car boot for many a year, but I remember when they were huge, and you just have hundreds and hundreds of cars, and you buy all this stuff that you didn't even need, and then take it back to the car boot the following week.
Well, the thought had crossed my mind. But you say that you don't need, but I got really lucky, because on Sunday I picked up for the princely sum of £2. Wow. I got this. Look, this is Doctor Who, the visual dictionary, but it is updated and expanded.
Nice.
There. Now, I was umming and ahhing, Andrea, about this, because I've got quite a few Doctor Who books already, and I've got a few editions of this. And some of the covers, they sort of blend into one. I was trying to remember which Doctor was on the front of the other one that I got. But no, this is an update. I haven't got this, but it's got a sort of hologram of Peter Capaldi there on the front, and he moves. He kind of materializes and dematerializes himself. It's pretty cool. But it's a big chunky book. I can't say much fairer than that for £2. And
it's pretty good nick too, isn't it?
Yeah, all these big sort of these sort of big infographics that they do, and cross-cut section illustrations, all of that. And it's all the characters are all there. That's what's her name, Celia Imbrey, whoever she played in that silly story there. That's all there. Well, this brings us bang up to date, doesn't it? With really the last stuff that mattered. So I'm up to date with everything that I'm going to need next year for the 60th anniversary. So I'm well chuffed with that. But it's just the latest in a long line of little things that I've picked up. But I don't see Doctor Who stuff at these things very often, because I think that when people have Doctor Who, they know that there are people like us who are really into it, and they think we'll pay absolutely anything for it. So in all seriousness, they put it on eBay and things like that, don't they? I suppose you do.
They do. But I think also, we were joking about, that little ember of hope. But I think that, there is such affection that people, they can kind of scrub stuff from their minds. For a lot of people, Doctor Who finished at season 10, and I'm okay with that. So they love what they love, and they'll hang on to it. They won't let that original passion be taken away from them, which including myself. I think you just got to love what you love, and if people love past 10, that's absolutely fine as well. I don't have a problem with that. If we all like the same things, it would be really boring, wouldn't it? Because there wouldn't be any point of any YouTube channels, because we'd all sit here agreeing with each other. So but we have such a passion for it. You don't see much secondhand stuff apart from the odd a big chief figure comes up for an extortionate amount of money.
Yes, I do see those, where things that people buy, like an impulse buy, they probably spend more money than they should, and they think, oh God, they've got to stare at it. That thing cost me how much? I'll see if I can move it on. Digby Strawbridge is here, and hello Digby, and he says the WH Smiths have been closing a lot of their stores post-COVID. I've noticed that too. It's a sad sight to behold that. I picked up the War Doctor novel on CD. That's Engines of War, isn't it? That does look like a good one. I've never read it myself. Yeah, it does look like good. You can pick up these little bargains here and there. Will there plugging his book again? It's called the Resurrection Plant there. I think it means plant as in a place of manufacturing something, not a plant as in like a cactus or something like that. It's not in flora and fungi. I think I know what he means. Peter Harrington says that, God, there were Daleks on stalls everywhere years ago. I suppose they were. Everything, it sort of moves in cycles, doesn't it? I suppose.
It does.
Absolutely everywhere. Peter Harrington says, I got a bargain, Peter. I knew you'd appreciate that. He's a bargain hunter too, I think.
You can't make a bargain.
No, this is it. You can't. And when I was a kid, I used to go everywhere around bookshops and things like that with a long list of the target novels, which ones I'd got and which ones that I hadn't, and I crossed them off with a highlighter pen. And sometimes I'd find sort of 5 in one go, and I'd be really, really happy. And then I discovered mail order. Realized that actually these things were a lot easier to get than I realized. And I could order them all at a certain point, and it seemed like a brilliant idea, and it's kind of robbed me of the long term fun. Talking about Daleks, I don't know if you appreciate a pretty picture or two, but we like them on Type 40, and I've just recently seen this is by James Johnson, who calls himself the Prydonian. I don't know if you're aware of his work. He does a nice line in... It's virtually all Daleks that James does.
Yeah.
This one was up on Twitter, and this is his take on those Daleks that we saw in the New Year special, Eve of the Daleks. I don't know if you saw that one. Even if you did, you've probably forgotten it. It was bloody awful. But look at these. Look at the weaponry there. It looks really formidable, doesn't it? One of them's got a sort of a rotary saw.
Yeah, but I think this is different when there's attention to detail and a bit of love behind what you're creating. You can just see it, can't you?
You can see he spends hours and hours and hours there.
The detail's phenomenal.
The little grabber on the one on the right, it reminds me of those machines you get in arcades. You've got to grab a cuddly toy, and there's a Smurf somewhere sitting down the bottom, and you've got to sort of... I've been terrible at those things.
Because I think the Daleks are about as effective as those grabbers in the New Year's Eve special. They were so bad.
I think you could be right, but he's managed to catch, I think, the menace of the Daleks there with the glowing red eyes, and it's really nice. And another bit of fan art that I saw is this, which is this really made me laugh. I'm not sure. I didn't get a name of somebody who did this. I meant to make a note of it, and I didn't. But it's absolutely genius. That looks like a breadcrumb coated dinosaur there, doesn't it? Third Doctor is there, invading what looks like the back set of a show like The Brothers. Maybe would have been filming at the time. It does look like BBC premises. Oh, listen. Oh no, it could be a model actually. Yeah, it's a model.
Or BBC car park or something.
Yeah, it did. All this stuff really makes me laugh. Really creative things. It looks like it's something that you could have actually seen on screen in an episode of The Goodies.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. So right, okay, we've got 10p and an empty washing up liquid bottle. What can we do? It's like...
So you remember The Goodies then? Do you remember all that stuff?
I do. Yeah.
70s. So what are the shows I noticed that you've started this YouTube channel, haven't you? Mm-hmm. You're talking about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
But it's not just Doctor Who, is it? You're into all sorts of science fiction and fantasy. So give us an idea of some of the other things that you're into.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sort of what's around at the moment, you'll find on my channel very much the Orville. I talk a lot about the Orville. I was very fortunate to go on Orville Nation, PJ's channel, another guy. He basically got me into this because I've been umming and ahhing about doing it, and then absolutely, got bitten by the bug after being on his channel. I love For All Mankind, which is currently on Apple, as the Ronald D. Moore, who done Battlestar Galactica.
About 3 seasons into that, aren't they?
We're 3 seasons in. It's the season finale this Friday, and it has been renewed for season 4. Obviously, we're still waiting on the Orville. In terms of other sci-fi or old sci-fi sort of Doctor Who period, I very much grew up on Blake 7, Space 1999, Sapphire and Steel, which I was probably way too young to watch that, and it scared the bejesus out of me. Absolutely scared the
my language here.
And then sort of growing up, various sci-fi shows, but the comedies as well. I mean, obviously Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like Douglas Adams, other things like that. The usual Star Trek, Star Wars, not so much the most recent stuff, but we won't go into that too much. Say that for another day. Yeah, exactly. And I love like the X-Files and anything a little bit out there. So I'm watching From at the moment, they're all a little bit sort of Mystery Box and Wayward Pines when that was on, where you're a little bit, it's now, but it's not now, when you're trying to figure out what's going on. So I love anything like that. Fantasy, I'm not so big. I'm not massively into sort of
you
Lord
cherry
of the Rings.
pick. Yeah, it sounds like you know your own tastes. And did it kind of start with Doctor Who the way it does for a lot of us? That's like an entry-level drug.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously the time it was on, and I've got an older brother who's 5 years older than me, and he was into all this stuff. So as you do, you kind of watch. But it was very much a family show. We all loved Doctor Who. We'd all sit down and watch it together. And again, the start of the Tom Baker titles used to scare the living daylights out of me.
Yeah,
so I always sat behind the sofa for the credits, and then we'd come round and watch the show. And it's like it sort of scarred me for life, I think. But
what scared me so much about it, Andrea, was the fact that it would start in pitch black, and then you get those two lions, which would seem to come from behind you, and they would gradually open up, and then you'd see the TARDIS. It was like if you watched it in the autumn, for example, when the nights were a lot earlier in the day, where it would get darker earlier. Blimey, spit it out, Adley. When it would get dark earlier, it would be really, really creepy.
Yeah, and it was Tom Baker's face, because it was such a stern expression on his face, wasn't it? He looked like he could murder someone. He was like very. Whereas I think later on they became softer, but his was very, very. And I was like, every time it would be like, yeah, you can come out now. It's like, because I was scared. If it's going to scare you, you can't watch it. And I go, I'm not scared. And then, of course, you're like 5 minutes into it, sort of sitting there. Yeah. And when you watch back now, I was thinking, oh, how did I used to find this scary? But I think, it's just a different time, wasn't it? And the effects were what they were for the time. So
I think you'll find a lot of fans feel exactly the same way. And people certainly do in the chat. We've had lots of nods, lots of approval here from people. We also love Blake 7. Referencing the Goodies and things like that, and it's. I think there are things that we all seem to watch, even though they would have you believe that nobody watched these shows. Somebody was watching them, because we all saw them, didn't we? Maybe we didn't count because we weren't old enough to pay the license fee. Then I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's like, I think the UK has such a rich history of sci-fi, probably more than some other countries, and and I think it's quite funny when you do speak to Americans, and their sort of view of our cultures through a lot of this TV. And I'm sure they still think it is the 1970s here. Some of the things they say, but it's brilliant. Well, I mean, I love it, and I love that we've got those exports and that kind of history. I've literally just started rewatching Blake 7 on BritBox. because I was like, I literally haven't seen it since I was a kid. So
really,
I'm
you're in for
really
such
enjoying.
a treat.
I know.
And you say that about the 70s, Andrea. I live in Birmingham. I don't think you can tell by my voice, but I live in the Birmingham area. And if you know certain pockets of Birmingham, it is still the 1970s. I hate to tell you this. But while we're talking about the 70s, that reminds me, because I've got this to plug. This is happening in a few days' time from our friend Ian Kubiak at Cygnus Alpha Events. I wanted to plug this because Ian's been on the show a few times. He puts on these amazing conventions. He does them both online as sort of Zoom events and out in the real world. They've let him out in the community as well now too. And you can book up for this. There is still time to book for this. It's a one-day event that's taking place this Saturday coming. Spearhead Live. It's a convention that takes place at Wood Norton in Evesham, Saturday the 13th of August 2022. Now, that was the building where they filmed both Spearhead from Space and parts of Robot. So it was owned by the BBC at the time. I think it was a sort of training facility, a big sort of grand house. That one where John Pertwee took a shower in his very first store.
Oh, yeah.
It's that one. So Ian's got that place for the day. I don't know if he's going to try the shower, but I would imagine maybe he'll keep that to himself. But he has roped in all these good people. So Sylvester McCoy is there, and Sophie Aldred, John Levine. Who else? Various people. Michael Kilgarriff, who was he was the robot. He's the great big fella, because he played the cyber controller as well, didn't he? So he's there too. Along with Tim Treloar and Daisy Ashford from Big Finish. They played the third Doctor and Liz Shaw, don't they? So again, that sort of links back to Spearhead. And a friend of the show, Chris Naylor's there too, who plays Harry Sullivan in the Big Finish stuff. So it's a good mixture of people there. And Ian especially wanted me to mention that Sylvester and Sophie will be wearing their original Doctor Who costumes in the photo studio, so guests can go and have their photos taken with the Doctor and Ace in costume, I think for the first time in several years. So they're very good sports of them to do that. And he also stipulates that the ticket price there, which is all up on cygnusalpha.com, we'll put all the information in the description of the video. That'll all be there. But included with the ticket price is a drink and some lunch too. I don't know how big that will be, whether he's going over the little or whether they put it on. I don't yet. Seeing is going to be believing, I suppose. But knowing Ian, no expense will be spared. I mean, that's a cracking list of guests there, and a beautiful location too. So yeah, if you do go to Spearhead Live, have a fantastic time. It's all up at cygnusalpha.com there. Oh, that's the first plug out of the way. So Tim Treloar's there. So he plays the third Doctor now on Big Finish, and when it comes to that character, stepping into somebody else's role in the way that they have on Big Finish, that's a difficult thing for any actor, I think, to even consider doing, isn't it? And you do wonder, Michael Troughton's now playing Patrick Troughton's character and all that sort of things going on. But you think to yourself, well, okay, it's been set, a precedent has been set, and they can kind of feel their way into it. And particularly if his own father has played it, there's probably something latent within Michael Troughton that means he can pick it up. But some of the actors who actually have played their own incarnations on TV, when you listen to them speak as well, they are, how can I put this? Some of them at various times over the decades have been keen to distance themselves from the role, haven't they? Or get a kind of crisis of confidence that they could play the part again. Tom Baker was probably the most famous example, because he kind of felt, I think, for a long time that it had ruined his career. Yeah. But lately, and you could say maybe he was right. But this week we've had, obviously, because we're all swept up in excitement for the 60th anniversary, aren't we? And we've got David Tennant back. But you can't help but wonder about who's next. Can you? Have you been wondering who they're going to announce next, if anybody?
I don't know if we're going to get that many more surprises, to be honest. I mean, I think if any other Doctors were going to come back, I think we would have heard by now. And being Russell, obviously, the only really other Doctor he worked with Eccleston, and we know the history between those two guys and how well they go on. So I think that's highly unlikely. Could we get maybe Martha or something like that? Possibly. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, some of the people obviously been it are now in Hollywood, or they've got, much, much bigger careers and things going on. And I think, David Tennant's probably come back more as a favour to Russell T Davies, I would say, and their history and legacy to try and, repair the show that they created so well together. As he was, he done the 50th. He probably had no intentions of coming back, but
I think it was always in the back of Tennant's mind. I think he's too much of a fan to think he would ever be done with it permanently.
Maybe.
I think he's kind of the outlier.
Could be. I mean, obviously, he was one of he's the first of the new Who's to do Big Finish. He came back to that. But I think he's a hugely talented actor. He had quite a good. His career was sort of taking off when he became Doctor, and he's had a very successful career since the Doctor. So I don't think he's afraid of coming back, because he knows he can step into the role and step out the role and still get acting roles. I think he's kind of elevated himself above the role, but will always be loved for the role, if that makes sense. So I don't think he's got that where, some of the other Doctors, you haven't really seen them on TV or in a sort of smash hit since they left. So I can understand a bit of reticence to sort of come back if you haven't forged that new career path forward, maybe.
I think the one that interests me the most is Matt Smith, because in some respects, you could say that when you look at his film career, it's been generally sort of modest hits like Last Night in Soho.
Yeah.
And then you have out-and-out failures like Morbius. He seems to have been quite unlucky. But then you look at what he's been doing on television, and 2 years on The Crown, where he was just exceptional as Prince Philip. I forgot that I was watching Matt Smith. I forgot that I was watching The Doctor. And more to the point, I started to feel as if I was watching Prince Philip. So I'm a big fan of Matt Smith. And he's been talking about Doctor Who this week, because we've all been speculating, and we know that Matt Smith has met with Bad Wolf. We know that's happened. Whether it was about Doctor Who or not, we're not entirely sure. But he has been speaking this very week. And, the Doctor says, doesn't he, that there's no point in growing up if you can't be childish sometimes. And I like to think that the actors, when they step back into the role, they can kind of reconnect with their inner child, but particularly Matt Smith's Doctor, because he had that kind of, I always described him as feeling like a head boy at a public school, mixed with Peter Pan. I thought he was that kind of magical, eternally youthful character. And yet Matt Smith, when they've cornered him this week, because he has been speaking on the publicity trail, because he's part of this new Game of Thrones prequel series, isn't he, called House of the Dragon. Do you know much about this?
Not a massive. I mean, I've not watched Game of Thrones. I think I'm the only person on the planet who's not watched Game of Thrones. And everybody's like, "Oh, you're liking it," because I think the package, the setup I've got, basically, I don't have or didn't have Sky Atlantic when this stuff was shown in the UK. And then when I sort of planning on getting into it, then it was obviously after it finished, and everybody said it finished so badly. I thought, I'm not doing it to myself. I can't go through another show where it ends badly. So I've never got into it. But I thought, as this is a prequel and it's quite a big gap between this and what happens in Game of Thrones, I think I could watch this and not need to know. So I might give it especially say with Matt being in it. Try and be supportive of that.
Yeah, because he's playing an ancestor of Daenerys Targaryen on this show, and it looks like he's going to be the main character too. I think he's certainly a big draw. Although there are other great actors in this. Paddy Considine's in it. I think he's just fantastic.
I mean, I hope so. Yeah, I mean,
the Midlands.
Cheer the Midlands. I mean, I really feel for Matt Smith, because he's such a talented actor. To do what he did in Doctor Who, to be like at that point the youngest Doctor, but could portray such an old head on young shoulders, it was just phenomenal. And everything on paper that he got roles in, on paper you think, oh, he should, right, he's going to be in Terminator. That's going to be great, and he's going to be in Star Wars, and then that got cut, and then he's going to be in this, and then it turned out he's in Marvel. So surely every time you think, surely this has got to be the project that breaks him. He's such a talented actor, but for whatever reason, he's just got such bad luck, because like everything he's picking, you wouldn't think they're bad choices, and then until the films come out and you're like, oh, they've either reduced his role, cut him out completely, or it just doesn't land with the audiences. So I think for his sake, I'd really hope, and actually fans of Game of Thrones more than anything, that this actually gives them what they didn't get at the end of Game of Thrones. I do hope it's good for them.
I do wonder. I think Matt Smith should probably have a word with his agent, but he has had this interview this week with Rolling Stone magazine, an interview and a photo shoot. He photographs rather well, doesn't he, Matt Smith? I think he did used to work as a model.
He's got Mina Moody nailed, hasn't he?
He's got that down to a T. Yes. So they asked him. Obviously, they talked quite a lot about House of the Dragon because that's why he's there. And they took all these pictures and whatever else. And it seems like they had a really candid interview in a pub somewhere. It's a very amusing read. Really recommend that. I'll put the link to that in the description of the video as well because it's a cracking little bit. But of course, I think that most people who work in the media are Doctor Who fans to some degree or another. And the interviewer for Rolling Stone did ask Matt Smith about Doctor Who. So we've got a couple of great quotes from him. And this is the first one. So obviously people are asking him about, is it likely that you'll be back because Tennant's back? Matt Smith was arguably internationally as successful in the role. And he said, well, David Tennant's back. And his words on that were that, well, Russell's back, so it makes sense. What an actor, what a doctor, what a bloke. Arguably, David is a totally seminal doctor. He was as popular as it gets, really. But he was so kind to me, David, in the transition. He's just a good bloke. So he does the actorly thing there of I think his mate on the back. Notice there, Matt Smith's got a little bit of grey coming in there. Have you noticed that? A little wisp of grey.
Oh, yeah. Get your Grecian out. yeah. Just for men. Well, wait till you see what he's wearing in this one. So, they asked him direct, are you going to come back? Is this something that you're going to do? And he said, maybe. It's just a maybe. If the script was... If it was the right script. I mean, I don't know if I've got too old now. So maybe he's conscious of that silver streak there. But it would have to be really right. You would think, because David Tennant is always, when they ask him these questions, even when there's not an anniversary round, he says something like, oh, well, how long till the 60th? 5 years, is it? He sort of plays along with it. It's a cat and mouse thing. And I think he knows that we know that they're going to get him. But Matt Smith is not so. Matt Smith doesn't seem so drenched in Doctor Who. Do you think this is part of a game as well? Is he playing cat and mouse too? Is this a distraction that really he has signed up? And if he says something like this, he'll throw us a scent. What do you think? I think it's got to be a little bit. I mean, it's the first time he said maybe. I mean, he's been quite like, no, I've done my stint. It's time to move on. So even that's a little bit of a U-turn from he always says, I've got a great love for the show. I thank the show, but I've done my time. And to say maybe, I think either he's deliberately trying to get all our hopes up and he's going to crush us, or there's definitely some conversation. Well, even if he's not in the 60th, maybe he's going to be in the next season with Shooty. Who knows? It's not like we've had like the 5 Doctors, 3 Doctors before now within a season. So it could happen, but I certainly don't think. I mean, I get he's about 40 now, and he was like in his late 20s. But
he's coming 40 later this year.
Yeah, but I mean, there's these days, there's so many ways that you could write it in that he's potentially older, or you've got the de-aging technology now that you could de-age him if he was conscious of that. I think there's lots of ways they could play it if he really wanted to come back. And I don't think he should be conscious of. I think 5 minutes on the screen, you wouldn't even really see. I mean, David Tennant's a good 10, 15 years older than when he last played the Doctor. Do we care? No. You kind of see past it because it's just having the Doctors back,
That has. I mean, you can see in this, he's always had this kind of soft yet craggy at the same time face. It's so strange how he manages to do that. And I think that will stand him well for the future. I think because he is a character actor.
Yeah.
He's that rare breed of a character actor who can be a lead as well. And so I think that if he is genuine and if he is having this sort of crisis, because when you hit a big number like 40, you can see 40 on the horizon. So maybe he is feeling not quite as nimble as he used to be. Maybe he's thinking, perhaps he should settle down and do this and do that. I don't know. Maybe it's his agent in his ear saying, don't be too easy to get for these Doctor Who people.
Yeah, and like I say, he's obviously looking at sort of. I think if he came back, does that mean Karen would come back? Because they're obviously very, very close friends. You might say, well, I'll only do it if she decides to come back. There could be lots of games and things going on, and but obviously her career's been taking off in Hollywood as well. So.
He mentions her in the piece as well. He talks glowingly about her, about how close they are, how proud he is, and about her recent wedding, how lovely it was to be there for that.
Yeah, exactly. They seem like genuinely really good friends, and I think a lot of the cast. I mean, that's I think part of the reason I think the show's so successful is there's a genuine love between the cast. I mean, you look at David Tennant and Billy Piper; they're really really close friends, good friends. That comes across on the screen. Same with Catherine Tate. There's a real camaraderie. Like they say, once you've been in Doctor Who, you're a family, and that actually comes through the screen. I think certainly in the seasons, the new Who seasons that I've seen. So I think they're like it's a bit like dominoes. If one goes, I think they all sort of go, oh yeah, we'll come back,
Maybe.
kind of thing. Because I can't imagine that any of them would like where the show's at right now.
No.
And,
well,
they have that love for that show.
Not so much. I think David minds his tongue. He can't not know. Whereas Matt, being completely out of the loop, there's been a couple of occasions now where he has been on videos. I think during lockdown, where they would talk about the fact, for example, that there was the special was on New Year's Day now, and he was really surprised by that.
Yeah,
Has the show been downgraded? And people sort of leapt on that, and it was a pure reaction. It was a man in the streets reaction to seeing a former massive show being reduced. Reduced. Will Hadcroft again in the chat says, I think Matt has one of those faces where he will never look that different. He looked old when he was young, and it will work the other way around. That's a much better way of putting it than I did. Maybe Will, you should be a writer. Peter Harrington says maybe a Bond. I think Matt Smith would make a fantastic Bond, because even though he hasn't got those sort of classic Pierce Brosnan style looks, looking slightly unusual, because Daniel Craig is a kind of unusual looking craggy guy. I think they've proved that can work with Bond. I think it could be a stretch. I know Matt's in the gym constantly now. He's a much bigger bloke than he was when he played the Doctor, more stronger, physically stronger.
Well, in Morbius, he had to get ripped for Morbius, didn't he? Where he's sort of shirt off action. So yeah, like I say, he's nowhere near as lean as he was when he played the Doctor. So
I like this picture I've got here of you talk about how close they all are. I think that extended Matt Smith and Steve Moffat there. But it just goes. I think that these sort of behind the scenes pictures that you see, obviously, I think that was from probably when they were making the show. But they really, really make me laugh. Those.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear a rumor that Stephen Moffat was going to write some episodes as well. With
no, I've heard that rumor too.
But again, they're very good friends, aren't they? And their partnership works. Their partnership really works. Like they write better stories together than separately, I think.
And I was thinking, what was on my mind when I was asked about this? I thought, well, why would he not ask him?
Yeah.
You've got this guy who loves Doctor Who. Stephen Moffat was caught up with that TV show of the Time Traveler's Wife, wasn't he, recently?
Yes.
But that's now, they're not going to make any more of those. That's been effectively cancelled. It's been cut off. They were planning on making 3 seasons. It's not going to happen. So I would imagine Stephen Moffat does have a gap in his schedule whereby perhaps a little bit of therapy and to get a story out, because he was just as involved. In fact, was he involved first in the Doctor Who lockdown thing? Those projects that Emily Cook put together. I think Stephen got involved first. I think it's quite likely.
And I say, if he is involved, that does give more credence that Matt might come back, because obviously Matt's Stephen's Doctor and David is Russell's Doctor. So it's all fuel to the fire.
Carol Jude says he would have been perfect playing the part that Neil Patrick Harris is playing. Well, you say that. We haven't seen it yet. I think Neil's a different performer to Matt Smith myself. I think they've got a very different vibe about them. And I'm not saying that Matt's not versatile. I think he is, but I think Neil Patrick Harris is sort of out there somehow. Thanks, Matthew. It's great to see you here too. Yes, the chat is filling up. Good to see you all. Keep the comments coming. And well, let us know what you think in the comments section. What do you think about Matt Smith? Is he trying to throw us a curveball there? Is he trying to take us off the scent? Or is this a real crisis of confidence in his own Time Lord abilities and the fact that he can reach that role again? I'm not so sure. I kind of think we're going to see him back sooner rather than later. But I've got one more quote here from Matt Smith talking about that little club that there's just 13 actors have been a part of, 13 great actors. Anyway, it's a wonderful club to be part of because, Doctor Who is just effing brilliant, isn't it? You know what? Sometimes That's all you need, isn't it, Andrea?
That's it. Sums it up. What more do you need to say?
can't really argue with
No.
any of that. It's plug time again, and more to the point, it's sort of not an unboxing, on opening time again. Now, when was it? Yeah, about 6 weeks ago on Type 40 Live, the big live stream we do on a Thursday, we do have a little pretty pictures section on that, where we look at fan art, digital art, and traditional art, sort of hand painted or hand drawn or whatever. And we do like to keep up to date with who's coming through and the variety of, because the Doctor Who community, it's so creative, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is. It blows my mind. Like either putting together, fan zone videos, making their own episodes of Doctor Who, paintings, books, fan fiction. It's stunning the passion out there in the community for it.
Sort of all there, isn't it? And have you seen these? This is the work of a really talented artist called Beatrice Garrido. She puts her work up on Instagram as buzzing_b_art, and these are paintings on pages of those original Target novels. So they've got that sort of vintage novels. They're all going yellow, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, we had loads. Me and my brother had loads of those Target books. It was like, once a month we'd go down to like John Menzies probably, or W.H. Smith, and pick up some of the latest Target book. Yeah,
gives it that sort of sepia look too, doesn't it? That fits with it being a vintage title.
Oh wow, they're so good.
Absolutely beautiful.
The likeness is amazing.
Yeah, and we talked about this on Type 40 Live at some length, and we were speculating, were they real pages of real Target books? And some of us had a different reaction to that than others. And we reached out to, Beatrice actually reached out to us. It turns out she was watching the show at the time. And, she was very, very flattered by the fact we featured on the show. She said some lovely things, and we said some lovely things back. It was all very lovely. But what she's done is she sent me one of her prints, because she's doing prints of these artworks. They're for sale now, and so I'm going to open one, and we're going to take a little look at some of Beatrice's work. This is what you get when you place an order with Beatrice at buzzing_b_art. Going to put all the links to that in the description too. Now this has arrived in this card envelope, which has been taped at either side there, and it's card reinforced, so nothing's happening to that.
Yeah, so don't drop yourself.
And we have so here we are inside. We have the print here, so we've got a personalized note there from Beatrice, and a sticker, and the print itself. It feels like it's on really good quality stock. So I'll take that off, and okay, let's get it out of the bag. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a look inside. It's very, very nicely. They're very thick bags too, so no harm is going to come to this print in the hands of the Royal Mail. So I want to make sure that no harm comes to it in my hands too. We'll have a good look.
It gets to destination, feels, okay.
Yeah, the quality of the colour already, I can tell, is absolutely beautiful on this thing. So let's see what happens when we get it up on camera. Obviously, there's going to be a slight difference when you get this on screen. Wow, yes, it's very, very thick card there, and the colours are just as subtle there. The variation, the sepia tone, and the quality of the hand painted, hand drawn art really does shine out there. That's an A4 print. I think she does all sorts of custom artwork like this, not just on pages of books, on banknotes and things like that. Wow. And so it's all up there. I'll put her link tree. Actually, I think there are various options that you can reach out to Beatrice and get some of her work. But this is definitely getting framed here. And Planet of the Daleks, and Joe Grant, one of my favourites too. The beautiful Katie Manning there. In fact,
stunning, absolutely stunning.
I'm going to out myself here. This was the story, Beatrice, and she wouldn't know this, but this was the story that was actually airing at the time of my birth. So it's almost poetic too. I've outed my age. I know, I can't believe it either, everybody. So I've outed my age there, and that was meant to be, I think. So thanks again, Beatrice. And it will be, if you're a fan artist of any kind, whether you dabble or whether you've got your own Etsy shop or Redbubble or anything of that nature, get in touch. Type 40 on Twitter and Instagram at Type 40 Doctor Who, or come and tell us about it in the Type 40 Facebook group. We'd love to see the product of your work. So yeah, you can go and follow Beatrice over on Instagram here. That's her page. That's what it looks like. Oh, beautiful. Look at that butterfly there on the dollar bill. Wow.
Amazing. Yeah.
Fantastic. So are you crafty? Are you, well, you know what I mean? Arty?
Arty, yeah. I know I can draw a bit. I was quite good at school. I used to mainly sort of just do animals and things. I wasn't very good at people. But yeah, I it's not really something I do these days or really have a chance to do. But I used to love drawing. Probably past that, I mean, I was absolutely rubbish. I'm a good cook, but I was absolutely rubbish at anything practical, like doing home economics. I broke so many sewing machines, they actually banned me from using them. So anything like that, I'm absolutely hopeless. But cooking's I'm very good cook. Cooking's my jam.
You've not got yourself for the adult colouring books that they do then. They do Doctor Who and Game of Thrones and Harry Potter and all that kind of thing, don't they?
My friend actually bought me one, not a Doctor Who one, but yeah, she got a whole sort of set of colours and the adult colouring books, and I was just like, what are you trying to say? I don't know what you're doing. So, but no, it's actually quite good fun. Like, you know, just sitting there, just switch your brain off, just chill and do. I have to look out for a Doctor Who one, definitely.
So they say. Carol Jude here is musing over Matt Smith again, and she says, what if Matt came back to play the Master or the Valyard once the regular show is back in production? That's a face worth taking. Oh, I see what you mean. And the idea of that does appeal to me slightly. I had a bit of a headcanon thing. This was during the Tennant era, actually, where I imagined, because we'd had the whole thing with the Cybermen in the parallel universe, I was under the impression that there was always sort of a multiverse in Doctor Who, stretching right the way back, but particularly then. And I imagined that maybe in some multiverse out there, the Doctor, not Davros, but the Doctor created the Daleks, and how Davros out there in another universe could be played by Christopher Eccleston. And that's how you could bring Chris Eccleston back into it, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, Big Finish, you can have that one.
That's amazing. I mean, I think we as fans, we always talk about Valyard a lot because it never went anywhere. They came up with this amazing concept, and then obviously the Colin era came to an end, and that's never been resolved. And it's just kind of always out there, isn't there? And I think even with the Jodie stuff, I think people are like, well, maybe she's actually Valyard. You know, maybe she's just, or she's the Master. Maybe she's not the Doctor kind of stuff. And Valyard always comes back into the mix, and I'd love to see them do something with that, because I think it would open so many doors and possibilities to really take the show in new storylines in an interesting direction.
I think the speculation that something like that would bring, we're bringing this actor back, but we're not saying who they're playing, which you could say they're doing that a little with David Tennant, because we don't know. He's clearly playing the Doctor, and to my mind, it's clearly post Jodie Whittaker because her TARDIS is there. But you know, some won't subscribe to that until they see it on screen. I suppose I can get that.
I mean,
speculation is fun.
I mean, I absolutely loathe, you know, the destruction of Doctor Who canon and the timeless children. Yeah, but what it does do, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, now we've got potentially unlimitless regeneration. So Jodie could go to Tennant to Shooty, and it's, you know, we don't have to worry about how many regenerations she's got. So it could open up things like that. But, you know, you might see a more churn of the Doctor, which people might get bored with. Personally, I'd like to see the original canon restored, and this story, he is a Time Lord and he is from Gallifrey, and all this was just some parallel dimension or just an outright lie. I think, you know, we need to get the Doctor back being from Gallifrey.
There's going to be some room to reset somewhere along the line. I think they're going to soft reset the easiest way that they possibly can to ruffle as few feathers as they can. He's out there, the Valyard, says Peter Hamilton. Nobody's forgotten, have they? It may have been 36 years, but people don't forget.
No. Well, it was such a bombshell, really, wasn't it? I mean, nobody saw it coming, you know, in the episodes. And Colin didn't have the best run in terms of storylines and writers. I mean, he had some excellent episodes, but they were more, you know, probably weaker than the previous Doctors had. And to have this sudden bombshell that not only is it, you know, the Doctor, but an evil Doctor, basically. We're like, how on earth did
dun,
how on
it was
earth
one of those moments.
did that end up
What did he
happening to
say?
him?
What did he say? I remember that scene going out, and I did the double take, and of course I was recording it at the time on a VHS. But you couldn't do the thing you can do now. You can rewind it in real time. You couldn't do that. So it's like, whoa, I have to wait until I can watch it again later on. Charlotte Shields in the chat, our friend Charlotte Shields from Type 40 Live says, I had thought ages ago Paul McGann would be a brilliant surprise value. So this is quite a common thing then. It's not just you, Peter.
No.
And Carol Judite said, I was so set on wanting Tennant to play the Master. So people seem to want to see all our good guys turn bad, don't they?
Well, I guess some of that came, like, if anybody's listened to the Time Lord Victorious, isn't it? That kind of hinted that, or even, David Tennant's last, his regeneration, he started getting a bit too, full of his own ego and power and being the last Time Lord and all of that. So, and we always say there's a dark, we've always seen there is a dark part of the Doctor, and the War Doctor especially. But so when the Doctor does tap into it, it's always like quite,
it's powerful every time,
powerful.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's knowing that the character is layered, obviously, but flawed too, and that there is, if not a battle of wills going on within his own psyche, then there's certainly more to the character than being pure as the driven snow. That he's just as open, and it's just as possible that that darkness could seduce the Doctor, as it did the Master. I wouldn't say you always feel like he's on the edge, but I think you kind of feel that it's a possible. And some actors really lean into that. I think that Tom did when he was working under Philip Hinchcliffe, I think, deliciously, and he was encouraged to do that. I think those were Tom's latent instincts to do that. Not so much Peter. I think Colin was sort of told to do that, but I don't think that they really knew where that was going. I think it was I think when you try and force it as they did there, it can't help but not work. But Capaldi has just got that anyway. And Tennant, we saw, I think his character evolved in that way. I think he felt like initially I felt with Tennant, when he started playing the role, that he was like that fanboy, oh my God, I'm playing the Doctor. And then after it was a success, it's like, oh no, now I've got the license, I've got permission to play this character on as many strings as I've got, and to really show them what I can do. With all those sort of those Shakespearean kind of leanings that he's got, I think that really comes through, particularly in Series 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there is a running theme, and certainly I think, like Donna said to him, like, don't be on your own. And that's why he does always seem to have assistants, as they were, or, people traveling with him, because they kind of keep him more honest and more grounded. And I think, that's why he does, it's kind of written that's why he does spend so much time on Earth or has humans around, because they do have that, help him almost with his moral compass. And what we did see in the last 4 of David Tennant, when he has no one reining him in, what could actually happen. So I mean, if he's supposed to be 1,500 years old now or something, because I think it's about 1,200 years old with Capaldi. You've lived that long. It changes because I think it was like 900 with like Tom Baker, but then it was 900 when it was David Tennant, so who knows. But when you spent that much time on your own, that isn't healthy, especially when he thought he was the last of his kind. So I
think those scenes as well, where the 12th Doctor was asking, he asked Clara if he was a good man. Yeah. And you could say that he was asking because he knew the answer really, and that he wanted some sort of positive reinforcement of that. But they could have been deeper. I think the character was experiencing a genuine crisis of faith in himself, if you like, and it worked because. And I think this is the same with pretty much everything Capaldi ever said on that show, is that even when things weren't there on the page, he would reach into them and pull something out of his bag of tricks, because he's an exemplary actor who's been doing it a very, very long time.
I mean, he again is he was so good in the role, and I just wish he had some better storylines as well. What he could do with some of the really weak episodes still made them watchable episodes, just because of him and his acting ability to draw you in and make you engage and believe what he's saying. I do really feel that you know, he was kind of done dirty there. Really, it would have been great if he got to have another season.
I think there was some gas left in the tank there. I really do.
Definitely.
Which is more than can be said for this person, for Jodie Whittaker. She's on her way out. We've got a minimum of a couple of months. I mean, to me, this is all over anyway. I keep forgetting that this last special is coming. 90 minutes more worth of Whittaker to sit through before she does whatever she does, bursts into flames, whatever's going to go on. Apparently, some fans on Twitter aren't happy about this because we're getting relatively close to this special and there's been no publicity, no trailers. We don't know the title of the episode, and they're getting a little bit petulant out there. I suppose I can understand, you know, the 3 or 4 people who are looking forward to this are very, very vocal about it.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it is that the promotion, and this is stretched back literally for decades, the BBC has never announced their autumn season programming until roughly August bank holiday, right at the end of August. They put a big trailer on bank holiday Monday, so everybody's around the telly watching it, and they put a clip of everything on there, don't they? Light entertainment, drama, comedy, game show, whatever. It's all there, and then it sort of rolls out from there. Why they would imagine that would be any different this time?
I mean, I think, well, my gut, because what the BBC tend to do is, if you've seen that we're already starting to get here's going to be on Who Strictly this year, so probably the Strictly launch show will get a trailer for Doctor Who, is what I think, or a teaser or something, because you normally got about 10 million people watching Strictly, you know, and why those people would be interested in Doctor Who, I have no idea, but you know, but yeah, I think if we're going to see anything, it's probably going to drop.
Be around then, because
around there.
They do a sort of slow reveal, don't they, of the people who are going to be on Strictly. They drop them out one by one, and then they do a sort of gala show. The
at the end of August, launching. And then it starts normally like 2 or 3 weeks later in September. Normally. And then run up.
They send them to boot camp, don't they?
Yeah, to see has anybody got any talent whatsoever? Yeah.
Yeah, and people again will say in the chat, I imagine the trailers will run when the BBC push their centenary celebrations, of which Jodie's episode will be a part of. I think that's what people are maybe not taking into account here. It's not Doctor Who's centenary; it's the BBC's centenary, and this is one of probably a couple of dozen shows that are going to go out over a 2 or 3 week period. It's not going to be all about this at all. I think that it may. I don't think it'll get lost as such. It'll be too awful to get lost. But for the general punter, I think that it's going to be that big 100 and a montage of different shows. The Thasmin of the Daleks, says Robert Payne.
Yeah. I mean, I think the BBC are kind of. Well, I mean, it's their own fault. I mean, they've completely backed themselves into a corner in all the Doctor Who stuff. So they're trying to obviously focus on Russell T Davies coming up, the 60th, and the all-new Doctor. But you've still got to say goodbye to the Doctor that basically, you know, they just let the show run too long. And I think, you know, if they just cancelled it after first episode preferably, but maybe season 2 a push. You know, they could have had a clean run. They could have built up to the centenary with the new Doctors, all of that. But, you know, whatever politics is going on at the BBC, like I said, they've just backed themselves into a corner here. So they've got to do something because it's her last episode, but they just know it's going to go down like a lead balloon. I mean, I wasn't planning on watching it at all. I was literally going to turn in for the last 3 minutes just to see her die. That was all I was going to tune in for.
A great many people feel that way. And you know what I say? Forget about what they say. Watch what they do. They may say that this is going to be a 90-minute extravaganza. It's going to be action-packed. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. That's what they're saying. But what are they doing? They're doing absolutely jack. They want this thing to go away pretty damn quick so they can get the adults, get the professionals back in the room, and get this IP back on track. That's how I look at it. We're going to get back on track now. There's people in the chat. Let's have one last look. Matthew Pounder says, I'm so sorry to see Jodie go. Said no one ever.
There's a handful of people out there who like her.
Harsh but based there, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the general mood here. But, you know, Charlotte Shields was saying earlier on, we should at least know the title. I don't know, to be honest. I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. I mean, I suppose we'd be nice, but...
Well, it's not like we don't know it's her last episode, is it? It's not like we don't know that this is going to be it. So whether the title is, it's probably something to do with her regeneration or something. So, but I also just think that, like I said, they're not that bothered. I don't
It'll be something pretentious, knowing Chris Chibnall. It'll be next to unpronounceable, and something forgettable as well. And
and have nothing to do with the episode either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's about it for us this time. Thank you to everybody who's been watching and listening along there, out there on YouTube and Facebook. It's been a nice little casual chat here. But yes, tell us a little bit more about the YouTube channel. What do you do? Is it like have you got a regular night? Is it a regular show that you drop out, or is it just the beginning for you? What are your plans? What can you say?
It's just the beginning. I mean, I've literally had the channel a week. I started last Sunday. I've managed to get 33 subscribers. I'm absolutely floored. I thought I was going to be talking to myself for months, just twitting away to myself.
I'll do it every night.
Thank you to those who have subscribed already. I tend to do what I'm planning on doing. I've done 2 now. Is like a weekly roundup of the shows I've been watching. So obviously I've covered the shows I've mentioned, like The Orville, For All Mankind, and I done La Brea this week that I've recently watched. Obviously, a few of those are coming to a close, so I'm going to need to find some new shows to watch. But as I expand, I will probably look back and review some older shows, like the stuff that we've been talking about. I'd love to do some Doctor Who reviews on, say, probably, as I said, my Doctor, Peter Davison. I'd love to do some stuff on that. And maybe
Peter's your Doctor too?
Peter's my Doctor. I was devastated when he said he was leaving. And the whole irony of the, I tell you, I recently, sorry, I know we should be wrapping up, but I just recently rewatched a lot of Peter Davison's, and what's really funny or interesting to see is when you watch David Tennant, he has so many mannerisms that were Peter Davison, and now that Peter Davison is his father-in-law, it's all this kind of bit of weird kismet thing. But the way he sort of puts his hands in his pockets and throws his coat back and the glasses. There's a lot of harping back.
Have you noticed the way he lowers his voice too? Because Peter Davison speaks quite highly a lot of the time, and so does Tennant. Yeah. But when he gets really serious, he takes it right down like that.
Yeah.
And he does that too. He gets right. I would say he gets up in people's faces, but he gets quite close to them and looks them dead in the eye. And flicks back his hair and things like that. I've loved what Peter Davison did in the role. But Will Hadcroft asks one more time, what is the channel called, Andrea?
It's called Atomic Blonde, LDN. Because I'm based in London. So please do go check it out. I've got a review up there for Prey that I done the other day.
People say that. I keep thinking of the Take That single. Okay, Prey, the Predator
with
movie.
an E, Prey with an E. I also done a review of Resident Evil. I wasn't a fan, spoilers. I'm going to be, I've just finished watching Sandman, so I'm hoping to get a review
already?
Out of
You've got through that already?
I have. I'm in a very fortunate position that because of my job and how my job works, I've actually got the summer off, and I basically cleared August to launch my channel. So hence I've been able to come on shows and things like that. So my days are, there was beautiful sunshine because I wasn't expecting it to be nice, because I thought if I have the summer off, it's bound to rain. I had all this beautiful sunshine. I'm indoors watching TV programs, trying to work out how to record, edit, all this kind of stuff, but it'll be absolutely worth it. So do check it out. So it is, and hopefully, coming on these shows as well really helps. Helps you get used to talking to the world and the chat and all of those kind of things. Really
since you've disclosed that your favourite Doctor was Peter Davison, you have already volunteered to come back on. I hate to break this to you, but
no, I'd love to.
That leads us nicely into a plug, everybody. Yeah, we like our plugs here on the show. Even if you don't, you're going to love this one, because this Thursday coming. We're back with Type 40 Live, our major couple of hours live stream every Thursday at 8 p.m. It's a weekly magazine format show, and we do a bit of everything. Panel of usually 5 or 6 people getting stuck in on all things Doctor Who, but we do throw in these big event shows now and again, and when we heard about this, we couldn't resist, so we're going to exclusively reveal here and now that this week, Thursday, 8 p.m. on Type 40 Live here on the Spacebook channel, we do this. It's John Nathan Turner's 75th birthday party. JNT, the big fella who brought Peter Davison's Doctor to reality there and shepherded the show throughout the 80s and stayed hanging around in fandom all through the 90s. He was still very much there putting up videos and all that.
Makes me feel old if he's 75.
It's a very controversial figure for some. Obviously, some really loved what he did, some didn't. But yeah, it's a complex story, JNT's connection with Doctor Who, but you can't say that the man didn't do what he did with style. Obviously, JNT's not around anymore. We're going to throw him a big 75th birthday party anyway. So bring your memories of Doctor Who during the 1980s, all the things you love the most, the things that we've got to thank JNT for. That we're going to focus on that, and we're going to delve into some of the nostalgia, as well as lots of other surprises too, and a surprise guest who was there, and maybe bringing on some memories and some pictures.
Fantastic.
So don't miss that. Exclusive stories about JNT, one of the biggest characters in Doctor Who history, albeit from behind the camera. Don't miss that this Thursday, 8 p.m. on Type 40 Live. Don't forget, get in touch with us through our social media about all of that and anything that Andrea and I have been talking about tonight. So it's Instagram and Twitter at Type 40 Doctor Who, and you can find us in the Type 40 Facebook group there. That's full of generations upon regenerations worth of fans talking about the classic stuff, commiserating over the loss of new Doctor Who and how bad it's all gone, but getting ourselves sort of zhuzhed up. Zhuzhed a word? It is now. Getting zhuzhed up for the 60th anniversary and shooting at us. So come and join in with all of that in the Type 40 Facebook group. There we are. That's how we roll here, Andrea. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I'm going to dematerialize now. And let us know what you think of all of this, particularly on Matt Smith and on the fan art too, on Beatrice's artwork there. And if you do book up for Spearhead Live, if you know Cygnus Alpha and their events, let us know what you think of them. Because I know they do get a great turnout there. I've been to some of these events myself. Absolute magic. And so we wish him every success with that, and look forward to seeing you Thursday, 8 p.m, Type 40 Live. Andrea, thanks so much for your company. I do hope we're going to rematerialize you at some point in the future, even if they can't get Matt Smith back. But that's it for this time.
Thanks, Dan.
We'll speak to you all again soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Night, everybody.